All right, guys, we made it. First ice 2020. It's been a roller coaster of a year temperature-wise. I think we set a record for as early as you can get out on the ice, which was about October 16th, the middle of October. Those conditions changed very quickly, and a lot of the lakes that had safe ice were open within a matter of days after that. So a couple things, before we get going here fishing that we want to talk about with ice safety. So this lake, I chose this lake for a couple reasons. One was its size. It's pretty easy to assume that a lake that's smaller in size is going to freeze over quicker. One thing that you want to take into consideration is how quickly the lake is able to cool. Larger lakes have more volume and it takes them a longer time to cool, actually, even if they're quote-unquote cold water lakes. So this is a smaller, shallower lake, has a chance to get colder quicker. But also, one thing I like to point out is, I'm always looking on onX, I'm always looking on Google Maps or the Humminbird Fish Smart app at satellite imaging. And one thing you should learn to read is topography on the land. Not only on your Lake Master chip, but on the land. So I like to look at lakes that are kind of down in a hole. We've got kind of high banks all around us right here. And that gives you less of an effect with the wind, I would say. And it can make a big difference even on, 3 to 5 inches of ice. So this lake's kind of down in a hole, smaller, and it looks like we got a pretty uniform freeze, but that, don't let that fool you, because you can probably see behind me, there's a lot of beaver activity on this lake, and they tend to like to leave water open so they can do their thing and be busy beavers. So beaver houses like this one here on shore, there's going to be channels around them that have bad ice. This one's pretty obvious. Another thing is beaver runs on shore or shore dens. Those are going to have some open water too, and that's going to be giving your most risk closer to shore here. So keep an eye out for that. Spud bar, that's going to be your saving grace. Check ice every step of the way, every step of the way. I've gotten to know this chisel pretty well. So, if I get 2-3 strikes, solid strikes, and I'm not hitting water, then we've got good ice. So feeling pretty good about the ice that we have here closer to shore, but like I said, we got to tiptoe our way out there. Check every step of the way. A couple things you can do for that too. I've taken the time to invest in a float suit. And right now I'm just wearing the bottoms, but that's enough flotation to get me out of a hole should I fall in. So invest in a float suit, that's a big deal. If you're a diehard guy still wearing Carhartts, like I grew up fishing with, bring a throwable, wear a life jacket, carry a rope with you, fish with a buddy, that's a big deal too. Like I say, I got a float suit, I got my ice picks right here ready to go at all times. And most importantly, I'm checking ice everywhere I go. So we're not going to venture anywhere that we haven't already checked ice. And we're going to take our time getting out there. And I'm pretty pumped because this is some of the best fishing you can have of the year. So we tiptoed our way out here. We had really good uniform ice. It looks like about all the same ice sheet. I don't know if you can see behind me, but that is not the same ice sheet. Something about that is much different. That looks like it just froze over within a day or last night or the day before. Luckily, we shouldn't have to fish over that way, but it just goes to show you, this whole lake could be pretty uniform, but there's one spot, say it had snowed. You wouldn't be able to tell that ice was any different, but visually we can tell something is definitely different and more fresh there. So just another word to the wise there. But looks like we got about 5-6 inches. So now I'm going to bust out the little 24V. This thing is just dainty cute, which goes along with one of the main things with early ice fishing, especially right now. Like I said, we don't have any snow. There's no snow in the woods. If it wasn't for camera gear, I would have my rods on my back, tackle in my pocket, this auger, and my graph. That's all you need. Not dragging anything, but we had to bring camera gear, so it makes it a little difficult. But you want to go light. So this is the lightest, most powerful auger that you can get, little 24V. So 6-inch bit, and let's check the depth. Hopefully it's any deeper than 13 feet, and see who's home. So it's a new ice season. I haven't pulled my Helix 7 ice unit out since March, I guess. And since then there's been a software update. So you always want to be aware that there's software updates out there. They do a lot of bug fixes and just kind of keep your unit working as it should. So keep an eye out for software updates. I did both the new software update and the base map update, which is a cool thing because say you haven't saved up $100 for the chip yet, there's a base map that comes with your Helix that will get you most of the way there on on a lot of different lakes. There's built-in mapping is what I'm trying to say. You can take that a step further by getting a Lake Master chip, but sitting in 16 feet, I like that. We're not marking anything right now. That means we got to get to work. We got to start drilling some more holes. The name of the game is just land on them, catch them while they're there, and then they're nomadic. They just keep swimming, so you got to kind of lay yourself out a grid and try to keep landing on those fish as they move around. Another school of thought too, those fish will make their way back eventually. So if you just want to drill a couple holes, set up in a house, you'll catch some fish for a little bit, then there'll be a lull and they'll come back around. But if you really want to stay on fish the whole time, you got to drill a bunch of holes, keep hopping around and chase that school around. So let's drill some more holes. Getting shallower. That's not what we want. Good to know. I had to do some snooping around as always to try to land on fish, and we found them. We found deeper water, and that quickly translated to a school of fish. We were marking some stuff on bottom. Like I said, I usually don't pay much attention to those fish as they're typically perch or smaller bluegills. I want marks up off bottom. I just got bumped and that felt like a bluegill. There's kind of two ways of going about this. I like to start out using a spoon or a more bigger aggressive bait. Oh, this one's flying. Oh, looks like I gotta shake the rust off or something. Unless these are gills and they're just pecking at it. Like I said, I'm using a spoon. Look at this one just flying. Yep, must be gills. I'm using a spoon. We're gonna get a little bit of both in this lake. There we go. And like I said, I'm using a spoon. It's just a little bit more aggressive. This is darker, boggier water. And I didn't bring any waxworms with me. Crappie. I didn't bring any waxworms with me because I have a lot of faith in plastics. So I'll show you what I'm using here. A little crappie. First ice. First fish of the 2020 ice season. I'm into it. So here I'm using the smallest size. I believe this is a 32nd ounce VMC spoon, Flash Champ. And then what I do, because a lot of times I don't want to mess with waxworms, so I'll take the treble hook off the bottom of the spoon. The graph is loaded right now. This is what you want to see. I'm starting to get a little warm in the belly now. Take the treble hook off, and then I'll thread a plastic up onto the treble hook. So that way you're not always having to rebait and stuff, and it's just kind of all there in one package. But like I said, you can get away with, oh, look at this, just airborne, flying. You can get away with a little bit flashier, kind of bigger baits. These fish are kind of still in their fall patterns where they're pretty active running around. Oh, crappie. That one's getting better. So I like to start out with a little bit flashier baits. And I like to see how those fish react to those baits. And if they're not reacting to them, then I will downsize. So you can see I have 2 rods here. The spoon helps me get down fast, draw attention. This is a UV orange, so it's really visible in this darker, boggier, tannic water. But if these fish are, flying up to the spoon, maybe not biting it real well, that's when you want to downsize to a little tiny plastic like I have over here. But I would rather mess with spoons for the most part. For some reason, the school just flew out of here, which is kind of the way it goes in the West, the way it goes on the ice. Boom and bust. The fish will come in hot and heavy, you might get one or two, and then they're gone. So, as you can see, this is a pretty interesting looking rod combo. If you're used to spinning gear, it definitely looks a little weird. Looks maybe like a fly reel. And these inline reels have really become popular in ice fishing for one really good reason, and that is you don't get coiling of the line. And when you're delivering a minute presentation down there, here we go. When you're delivering just a minute presentation down there, you don't want that bait to be spinning at all. The fish is already kind of temperamental. They want to look at it in a natural way. So you want to eliminate that spinning. Another crappie. This one was a little bit more finicky. So that is kind of the school behind the inline reels. Look at it. It's scarfed. That's kind of the school behind the inline reels, is eliminating that spin. You get just a smooth drop up and down. That's a beauty right there. Long boggy crappies. So that's the reel, and on that reel I'm fishing 3-pound fluorocarbon, which I am quite honestly experimenting with. I grew up when I was ice fishing, or the way I always did it was 6-pound for walleyes, 4-pound for panfish. But things have really come a long way. Everybody was really excited to use fluorocarbon in the beginning, but it didn't have real good ice properties. It really had a tendency to kind of stiffen up and coil. And sensitivity is a huge deal in ice fishing to detecting those very light bites. So fluorocarbon has come a long way. Now I'm willing to try it. The cool thing about fluorocarbon too is that it comes in pound test sizes that monofilament doesn't come with, which is really cool. So 4-pound, like I said, something I used a lot, was sometimes just too heavy for real finicky gills and stuff. So I personally don't want to use the 2-pound test. I feel like that's just too light. So 3-pound was a really good medium for me. Here we go, come on. There we go. 2 fish down there going crazy. So 3-pound fluorocarbon. And what you get with fluorocarbon is less memory, so more sensitivity, and abrasion resistance, which you wouldn't think is a big deal, but on the ice, say you lock into a bass, or you're fishing for bigger predator fish, that abrasion on the bottom of the ice can sometimes do some damage. So fluorocarbon's property of being a little more abrasion resistant, hypersensitive, and now it's made much more manageable with the way they are making fluorocarbon nowadays. So I don't have a lot more to tell you on it, because this, like I said, this is my first year experimenting with it. But given what I have read about any advancements in line design, I'm pretty excited about it and willing to give it a shot, because I love fishing braid, but braid really has a problem freezing up. You can't wick water really well, and there's ice braids out there that do a pretty good job, but when it's cold, it's just another thing you don't want to be messing with, especially if you get little droplets on your line that go into your spool, and then your drag just isn't very smooth. So another thing you'll notice is this wacky looking wand of an ice rod that I'm using. And this is an Archangel from 13. And it's a uniform blank. And the thing about that, again, is sensitivity. So, cork doesn't translate a bite as good as this would. This is basically a direct connection to the tip of the rod. So ultra sensitive rod. which is really nice. And this is a 25-inch ultralight. But as you can see, you know, I got a little high-vis tip on the end. It's very fast action, just kind of stops right there. So all this is very sensitive, but you know, say I hook into a pike or something like that, I still got a little bit of backbone for them. One thing you got to realize with rods, and a lot of ice manufacturers are doing this super fast blank. Think about it this way. This is a 25-inch rod, but I've only got about this much flex, essentially, to fight the fish. So that's where you really want to kind of manage your drag and know where your drag is at with things, because if this is just constantly spring loading like this, there's a good chance that when it hits this stiff point, it'll launch back, and sometimes you can lose fish like that. So with those fast tips like that, you really want to be careful the way you're playing your fish. But this is a super, super sensitive rod, which has got me really excited about fishing panfish with it. That felt like a gill. Just kind of spinning. Yep, little gill. Characteristic, kind of spinning around, which is kind of what we suspected, because those crappies had gone away, and what we were dealing with is some fish that were just boop, boop, pushing the bait. So I had actually put, like I said, this is kind of a 1-2 punch deal. I got the spoon on, I got a tiny tungsten and a plastic here, and they're both 13 Fishing Paralyzer plastics. I think that's just kind of a good in-between crappie and bluegill thing. I'm expecting to catch both, but like I said, we were kind of suspecting that they were gills because they're just poking it, and those crappies are just rocketing up and hammering it, but that's good to see. There's one more down there. Let's see if we can get him to shake up, or sometimes they call their friends in for whatever reason once they get excited. So keep dropping on them till there's nothing left. Here we go. Whew. Lifted. That thing was flying. It's always funny to see the different moods of the fish in the school. This one had a completely different attitude. There's another crappie. Right in the top of the snoot that time. Treble hooks. Friend and foe. They'll stay pinned pretty good, but a little harder to get out of smaller mouths, which is why I typically carry pliers, but they're not on me right now. Little crappie. More down there. More to get at. Another thing with these inline reels is they help you get down faster. You're not dealing with coiled up line coming off a spinning reel. If I'm fishing walleyes, I still tend to prefer to use a spinning reel, but this helps you get down faster. When I'm walleye fishing, I'm using a heavier spoon a lot of times. When you're using these little tungsten jigs or these smaller spoons, those fish in that school are oftentimes on the move, so you got to drop on them and get as many out of them as you can. So being able to drop down quickly is really important, and that's one thing that this inline reel will really benefit you with. You know, there are places you can go and you really got to put in a lot of work sometimes, you know, depending on where you're at in the country to catch trophy panfish. It really seems like they're getting fewer and farther between and harder to work for, which has kind of become one of my passions, is digging way back into lakes and trying to find those last frontier ancient crappies and bluegills, those big ones that you love to marvel at. But on the same token, you know, I like to come out here and just get bit, you know, boom, just like that. You know, it's, you know, if you don't have a boat, ice fishing is a big deal, you know. Another little gill. At least that's the way it was for me, truth be told. I grew up not having a boat, and so much of the lake was inaccessible to me until it froze. I'd go out and find drop-offs. You know, in the fall, guys will go out and catch basin panfish out of a boat. And it can be some really good fishing, but you're out of luck, I guess, if you don't have a boat. So now, the fish are kind of still where they're at in that fall period, still super active, so you can access them out here, and it's just a good way to get bit over and over again. So sometimes size doesn't matter. You can just come out here and have a ball and catch more panfish than maybe you had all year. They just are real aggressive. Whiffed on him. Come on, come back. And you could get yourself some dinner at the same time. I tend to only keep fish for special occasions. Little guy. That's the importance of sensitive rod, and like I said, that yellow, another little gill, that kind of yellow brighter tip on there. I might not have, well, I barely felt the bite, but that strike indicator, that yellow tip was kind of the no-brainer deal about the bite, because that is a small bluegill. But we're out here catching fish nonetheless. So far the spoon has really proved to be the more effective of the two techniques or two tactics that we're working with right here. But I like to roll with both. Like I said, take advantage of their aggressive nature. Early ice like this, you can use bigger, flashier baits. They're more apt to chase. As it gets really cold and we enter the doldrums, they don't move real fast. You have to use real subtle insect profiles. But that can also be the case right now depending on the fish in the school. So you got to roll with both, and especially if, you know, in these schools we're dealing with aggressive crappies who are flying up and hammering the spoon, but we're also dealing with little bluegills that are just pecking at it. And we've been able to catch a couple on the spoon, but if we were having a harder time, I think the bluegills would have an easier time eating the little plastic. So you kind of gotta roll with both is the way I like to do it. And like we were talking about, practice safety out here. I know it's exciting, but this could have some really honestly deadly consequences if you don't play it safe out there. So travel light and be smart. Like I said, I got that little 24V, just a tiny powerful auger. I got a light flight bit. It's a 6-inch bit, which is perfect for panfish, and it just makes that combo all the more lighter. I got super light sensitive rod here, light fluorocarbon line going along with the light theme. And then, you know, you don't need to bring the whole tackle shop with you, so this is kind of what I'm doing. Like I said, I'm fishing the 13 fishing paralyzer right now. I got this threaded on my tungsten, and I got this threaded onto the treble hook of my spoon. That way I'm not always balling up waxies. Sometimes the fish do prefer waxies over plastics, but this is a good profile that kind of adds to the nakedness of the spoon. And then in here, sizes for different depths, sizes for the mood of different fish, sizes to fit different plastics. And then on the other side, kind of some spoons, like I said, these smaller spoons. A lot of guys think that you need to use real micro tungsten and plastic baits, but you will catch some real big bluegills, and you'll catch aggressive feeding fish on spoons in the wintertime for sure. So the little 32nd ounce VMC Flash Champ spoon is a really good spoon for that. So this is basically it, you know. Get out there, do a little research on lakes that might freeze over a little earlier than some of the other lakes in your area, because right now I've got 5 inches on this lake, no ice on some of the other lakes. So you really just don't know when they're gonna freeze. Keep an eye on them, always check ice. Tread lightly, tread with caution, but get out here and give it a shot, because you can have some of the best fishing of the year at early ice for panfish.